Welcome back into the ASUG News Studio on day 2. My name is Tom Whalegum. I'm co-editorial director of asugnews.com with Courtney Bjorling. Courtney, welcome back.
Good morning.
Well, we are very happy to have James Fisher in the studio this morning. James, thank you for coming by.
Good morning.
It's a great way to start day 2. We just are fresh off John Schweitzer's keynote, which was very well done, his Back to the Future theme. Now, he was Michael J. Fox's character, and Adam Binney was the doctor. Were you ever considered to get up on stage? Were they going to have you up playing the crazy, wacky uncle from Britain?
You know, my acting skills are not that great, so I tend to sit back, provide a little bit of advice and guidance, and let those guys do it. They did a great job.
It was great. I mean, it was a good theme getting at the intelligent data, and I think that's one of the big themes. Can you explain a little bit for people who didn't see it, who haven't been up on this kind of intelligent data theme? What does that mean to the average ASUG member right now?
Sure. I think that when you look at the analytics market, whether it's performance management or business intelligence, you know, we hear a lot about people talking about big data, right? It's the big thing that everyone talks about. And people talk, and Sanjay talked yesterday about managing the volume, the velocity, and the variety of big data that exists. And to some extent, while that's a challenge that many enterprise architects are trying to deal with, we're hearing more and more people ask questions about how they leverage big data to drive a different type of business outcome. And this came out from some of the ASUG Executive Exchange meetings yesterday, where CIOs are beginning to ask the questions, well, what are the sorts of business processes that we can leverage and use analytics to help us improve performance of any number of functions and processes within the organization. So the whole intelligent data kind of message is really trying to move beyond just managing big data and using it as a foundation to drive something different and new within the enterprise.
One of the questions, actually, that's interesting you bring that up, because you hear a lot about that, and the questions will be, well, what can we do? Is it, you see your role now as actually showing those use case examples? Because with HANA and the analytics, you guys kind of, the message is you can do whatever you want with all this stuff. There's so much. Do you have to now really start showing concrete use cases? Because, you know, they want us, if they're asking you about what business processes, well, clearly they're kind of looking for some help there.
Yeah, I think the analytics market has for a long time been talking about technology. And certainly from an SAP perspective, mobility, cloud, in-memory computing with HANA are 3 key innovation pillars that Sanjay talked a lot about yesterday. But it's about applying those technologies to how people can run and manage their business that I think really becomes the kind of value multiplier. So Sanjay yesterday talked about a number of customers. We had Gabe from McKesson join him on stage and talk a lot about how they're using the solutions. We've had many other customers throughout the duration of these 3 days, and also the SAP Analytics Forum event on Friday, that are going to be talking about their experiences. And I think it is our responsibility to bring together the learning that we have from working with those types of customers, and then packaging that and helping other people understand how they can apply those things to their business. So I think it will shift from product to solution, ultimately to driving customer value through some of these processes. And ASUG plays a key part in that, as I think Sanjay talked a little about yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pick up on the Executive Exchange a little bit. For those of our audience listening that don't know what that is, that's our forum for C-levels to really exchange ideas and information on all of this stuff coming at them from SAP. What were some of the key questions that you heard from the Executive Exchange members yesterday? Can you talk to us about what you were doing there?
Yeah, sure. So the team joined the session yesterday afternoon. Sanjay led the presentation, really providing an overview of the analytics strategy, talking a little bit about what we're doing with intelligent data and how analytics sits within the SAP innovation strategy. But very quickly we got into talking essentially about roadmaps. So people have got questions about where are we taking these solutions. You know, we've talked yesterday and this morning about a number of innovations that we've been driving across the portfolio, but people want to understand how they can leverage that, how they go from the investments they've made to really being successful with some of their solution deployments around BI4 through to where the future will be. And certainly that use case scenario, the business process question came up very strongly, but how can people get access to the roadmaps? How can people really start to embed the SAP roadmap in their own solution roadmap to help them with adoption, to help them with deployment, working with our partners, the ecosystem. So a lot of those things were really where the conversation focused. I found it very interesting. I was sat at the back, kind of observing the interaction. As with all of these types of forums, it takes the first brave person to ask the first question, and then there's a kind of a snowball effect, and the vibrancy and the passion that people had, something that we talked about, a few weeks ago, within this community comes out really, really strongly. And I think that was a really positive piece. Bridget talked a little bit about the work on Sunday in terms of the interaction and SAP being part of some of the influence councils, and that interaction, that discussion for me was really exciting, and something that I'm very keen to see SAP, the analytics team, working with ASUG and the wider community to promote and push forward.
We are a year actually after GA, right? Was it September 2011? BI4 went GA, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Are you where you want to be? Are you guys where you thought it would be with the uptake, either net new or 3.x moving up? And if you're not, what are you guys doing to kind of address that?
Well, I think that we kind of put our hands up and look at the original release of 4.0 and look at that and say, well, actually, we could perhaps have made some improvements and delivered something which we would be a bit prouder of in terms of the quality of that release. And I think with the release of Feature Pack 3, which went generally available in July, that I think is a huge step forward. We're very confident in that release, and we're seeing very, very strong adoption from some of the customers. John talked about 3M this morning, but there's a whole host of customers that are working with FP3 and are being very successful with that. And so I think we've moved forward, and we feel very confident about where that's going right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you've made it a point as the analytics team. You talked about your presence at the Influencer Summit on Sunday and at the Executive Exchange Forum yesterday. And last night you had a special customer party where you really tried to call yourselves out with these special T-shirts. Tell us a little bit. I know you're the man behind the magic there. Tell us a little bit about those, and will we be seeing those again?
Well, will you be seeing them again? Probably not this show, because walking around last night and we've only got one of them. So probably not this show. But I think that what's the point there, right? The point is to make sure that we're visible as individuals, as leaders within the analytics business at SAP. I'm kind of walking around in a suit and a tie today, which is a relatively rare occurrence for me wearing a tie. But you kind of blend into the environment. And I think what we're trying to do is say, look, I'm new in my role leading marketing for analytics from April. John's moved into his role at the beginning of the year. We want to build and foster relationships with our customers as well as the wider ecosystem and the community. And that's just one way of just being accessible. I think Miko talked on some of the Twitter feeds around the kind of the no tie approach. And it's really about being accessible. And plus, I've always wanted to have my name on the back of a shirt. Right. It was a good opportunity to do it, right? So.
It's interesting in that you guys have rolled out the 5 pillars of the analytics, and I actually wrote them down because I wanted to make sure: core, creative, mobile, extreme, and social. With a lot of things in both of those categories, products. And how has that been received? I'm just wondering, are customers, can they be overwhelmed, or do you think the 5 has kind of narrowed the focus for them? And okay, these are the core areas that's part of the roadmap. I'm just wondering if there's been reception.
Well, I think the 5 kind of innovation pillars as it relates to business intelligence, it's very specifically about business intelligence, really help us communicate areas of focus in terms of where we're going. The broader analytics message is, of course, bigger because you then think about risk management, you think about performance management with the new releases of the EPM on-demand solutions that Sanjay announced yesterday. So there's a lot of detail, there's a lot of complexity potentially in terms of the breadth of the product set, the number of versions of solutions that are supported. So it helps give us focus, and I think, as with all of these things, I was a key part of the integration of business objects into SAP. We spent a lot of time talking about what the roadmaps were going to be, and we've had to be, to some extent, repetitive, right? Because we have a large community. So I think the 5 areas are designed, it's new, but it's designed to give us the opportunity to demonstrate focus in areas that are critically important. Extreme was something that someone tweeted about this morning. Did they hear the word extreme mentioned in the keynote? It didn't feature particularly heavily, but social, the whole focus on the core, all of those pillars represent different innovation areas that we're driving. And I think it's about providing a consistent message for people.
To sort of close us out here, one of the messages that's sort of new for this particular group, which is really 60 to 70% non-SAP back-end users, which Sanjay pointed out in his keynote yesterday, is that the analytics suite is really, you're really going to start targeting towards them. How is that message resonating here as you've been walking around and talking to customers?
To the non-SAP, traditional non-SAP customers?
To the traditional business objects, legacy user base.
Right. Yeah, I refer to them as business objects customers, right?
Business
Because that's how I
objects.
used to know them when I was at business objects. I don't like the term kind of non-SAP. I think there's a more positive term in, these are business objects customers. They made an investment there. I think you have to, you look at Sanjay's picture with the stack yesterday and the value of the stack. And I think Sanjay talked about the fact that we're going to optimize for the SAP community. And I don't think that anyone would criticize SAP for wanting to do that. But I do think it's important that we continue to show that there is value in a broader analytics message. And that broader analytics message does not have to be grounded in an SAP environment. You look at the legacy, the history of the EPM 10 solution stack. That came from acquisitions that SAP had made. It came from acquisitions that Business Objects had made. The majority of those customers, in the same way as the business intelligence customers, were operating in a kind of open and heterogeneous environment. Many of those performance management customers were doing the same thing. And the analytics story is about bringing those component pieces together. And I think perhaps it gets a little bit lost when we talk about that broader analytics strategy, that it's all about the SAP base. It's really not. And the history and the legacy of those 6,000, 8,000 now EPM customers is very much about a non-SAP environment. So I think it's a consistent story. We're just going to have to continue to work with customers to demonstrate that, to prove that, and then to showcase the success of customers that are doing some really great and exciting things, many of whom are here over the next 3 days.
Well, you promised you were going to be visible at this event, and you have been, true to your word, so we appreciate you coming by.
Thank you very much.
For more interviews with SAP executives and ASUG members, check out asugonline.com as well as ASUG TV on YouTube. And thank you for watching.
Good job.